So for the next few weeks, barring DIY Church next week, we're going to our theme is going to be things I learned along the way. So, and I'll go into the story in a minute. One of the things I thought would be helpful, I was praying about, God, what do you want me to start with? And a few years ago, Tracy and I, and that is Tracy there, and we decided to use the image of her looking that way, rather than her going, ta-da, was her request. I prefer the other one. But at this point, she's drying a T-shirt on her back while she walks, and that's what happens when you go on a long-distance walk. So as we walked, when I came back to the church I was serving at the time, I put this series of talks together about just things that I've been thinking on as I walk through life. And I thought this would be helpful for a number of reasons. One, you just get to know us a little bit. There's going to be a little bit in here about our family and different things. Secondly, I'm a great believer in God talking to us along the way. God talks to us in life. He's with us always. I think sometimes it's helpful when we connect real life to what we feel God is saying, and it just makes more sense to a lot of us that way. And thirdly, I just thought it was the right thing to do. And in 3 or 4 weeks' time, you can ask me if that was the right choice or not. It might be, it might not be, but we're experimenting, aren't we? So let's see where we get to. So, things I learned along the way. So, in 2002, our dream was born. So Tracy and I, driving through this, more or less this spot, this is Glencoe. To the right of the screen, you can see a load of cars parked there. And when you're driving down, there's a long, kind of 5 or 6 mile stretch of road into Glencoe, and it's all like this. And Glencoe's in Scotland. Sorry, I should have said that. Shouldn't assume you know where Glencoe is. Glencoe's in Scotland, and it is one of the most beautiful places you can just drive through. It's absolutely... I have no words. So we're driving through and we're looking at this place thinking this is absolutely amazing. And when we took Glencoe up towards the kind of middle of Scotland, up near Fort William, and when we went back at the end of our Scottish holiday, back to my parents who were living near Glasgow at the time, we were talking to my parents about it, and my dad said to us, you ought to walk the West Highland Way because it goes right through Glencoe. What is this West Highland Way, I hear you ask? Turns out the West Highland Way is a 96-mile walk from Glasgow to Fort William. So instead of driving that 96 miles in the 2 or 3 hours, we could have walked it over several days. What a great suggestion, Dad, I'm thinking. My beautiful wife went and bought a map. And we looked at the map and we looked at it together. And as you can see from the shape she is and the shape I am, one of us is built for exercise and one isn't. We'll just leave that there. Our dream was born. We had a map. We got excited about the map and we decided that we were going to walk this walk. Do you know when you just hear something, you think, I'm going to do that. That looks so exciting. Back in 2002, we had 2 young children. There they are, Stephen and David. David's not here this morning, so I can get away with putting that picture on the screen. David's on at the back. And they were little and delightful. Well, they were little anyway. And one of the things you don't do is take a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old or whatever they were thereabouts. You don't take them on a 96-mile walk, do you? I mean, that's extreme. I know we try and wear them out before bedtime, but that's a bit much, isn't it? And even then, a few years later on, this is us in 2005, just before we adopted our 2 daughters. And again, you're thinking we're about to adopt some children, and now's not the time either, and this is difficult. And basically, in these following years, our dream died. Pretty much by 2010, it was gone. It wasn't in my thoughts anyway, perhaps it was in Tracy. It was gone. This thing that we longed to do, this thing that we felt was important, had completely gone. In the meantime, and in the intervening years, we drove through Glencoe, probably 3 or 4 times. We still holidayed in that area, but the idea of it was gone. It wasn't practical. It wasn't realistic. And when you think about all sorts of things that Jesus said, here's an example. Jesus called out to the people who would follow him and says, come and follow me. I will show you how to fish for people. It's quite a grand dream, that, isn't it? It's not come and follow me and we'll have a nice time. Come and follow me and we'll go to church on Sunday. Come and follow me, and as an added perk, you can support Wolverhampton Wanderers. There's none of those things. It's come and follow me, and you will be shown how to help other people follow me. Together, we will be sharing the good news. That's the plan, that's the purpose, that's the dream. We had a dream, wonderful dream that we're buying into. And perhaps you've watched the film Les Mis. Perhaps sometimes, if we're honest, we feel that we resonate with that, what's her name? Anne Hathaway. Dreamed a dream. Fantine. Fantine, have I got the muddle? I always get the muddle. I hate that film. But it's a good illustration. She's dreamed this dream and now it's gone. And when you see her anguish, and it's not like, oh, it didn't work. There's real kind of, I had this dream and it's been ripped away from me. And life is ruined because of it. And we have this dream that God has given us. And evangelism is something that every Christian is passionate about, as long as it's the other people who are doing it. Do you know what I mean? It's the thing we pray for. It's the thing we love. We want people to come to know Jesus, but I want you to tell them. And I'll pray for you while you tell them. And the question I'm left with for us as the people of God is this. Are we people of faith, or are we just practical and pragmatic? When the chips are down, do we default to what's safe and easy? Are we willing to say to Jesus, if you're calling me, I'm in? And if every one of us in this room is honest, I expect the answer would be, we're both. Does that make sense? We have those moments of like, yes, Jesus. I can tell you a story of a time in my life when I've done things that are mad and it's been so exciting. I can tell you many more stories where I've drifted towards what is safe and normal. That's the easy thing to do. And that's really what I want us to reflect on this morning. What is God saying to us? And are we willing to step into it? Are we willing to change? Are we willing to align ourselves with him? So back to our story, 2017. Tracy again, looking a bit more kind of wrapped up. So in 2017, Tracy and I went for a walk. Our two adopted children are adopted, and so I'm picking my words very carefully. And our daughter, some of you know, Amy's here with us. Our other daughter, Summer, is in supported living accommodation near Colchester, where we used to live. And one of the things that astonished me when she went into that supported living, and she's very happy there, is she has 10 hours one-to-one care. She's assessed as needing 10 hours a day. 10 hours a day. And I'm looking at, I said to Tracy, we are the world's greatest parents. There's nothing big-headed in this, because most of the way we have stumbled through and muddled through. How do you raise 4 children, including one that needs 10 hours care a day, and have a full-time? You can't do that, okay? We're amazing. And sometimes you need to say that to yourself in the moment. Actually, if you'd have followed us like a fly on the wall all the way through, you'd have this horrible sheet of all the things we got wrong on the way. Yes, because we're human, we're fallible, we're only doing our best. On the way through, we've come out the other end alive and intact. Are we at the other end yet? Not sure about that. Anyway, park that. In 2017, our dream was born, and we were walking through some fields near Colchester where we were living, and because of how stressful our life was at home, we would go out for a walk on our day off. So again, something else you're going to get to know about me. I'm very odd. Glad there was a pause there. Those good people think that's not right. I'm a very odd Baptist minister because I have 2 days off in a week. The leaders do know about this. I'm not springing this on them. So most Baptist ministers have 1 day off. I have 2. I have Saturday off, and I have another day off so I can be with Tracy. All right, so that's what I do. I work on an hourly basis, not a daily basis. So you don't get less of me. It just means I ring fence a bit of time. And me telling you that is not to say, look at me and all my time off. It's to say to you, sometimes we just need to inject a bit of common sense into our lives and stop running around trying to do everything and look after ourselves. So there we go. So we're having this walk. In 2017, the significance of 2017 was that in 2018, you're going to find this very hard to believe, in 2018, Tracy and I were both 45. I know we don't look that old, particularly Tracy. We were both 45, and we had a bit of a walk, and on our walk we had a bit of a midlife crisis. And in our midlife crisis, it didn't end with a Ferrari but a sports car or whatever you do in your midlife crisis. It was kind of, what have we achieved in our life? And what have we done? What are we living? What's it all about? and we were reflecting on all sorts of things. And I won't relate that conversation to you. I didn't ask Tracy's permission to do so, but it was a really powerful conversation. And as part of that, this topic and this subject came up about the West Highland Way. Do you remember when? Now, I've told you a lot about me. One of the things you're going to have to learn about Tracy is if you ever say to her, let's do that, you better be prepared to do it. So we had this walk where he kind of said, yeah, let's do that. And you know when you have one of those walks where you think, yes, let's do that, and I think that's a good idea, but I'm going to think about it a bit longer. And Tracy, within a day or two, had looked up where we were going to stay and planned the route. And don't get me wrong, I was completely on board. But we did this thing. And then in 2018, here's us setting off in not Fort William, in Mulgai, where we set off from, just near Glasgow. And my parents were still living in the area, so we walked the first day and then stayed with them, and then the rest of the days we walked the West Highland Way and stayed in B&Bs along the way. And this was us about a mile in. You could tell it was only a mile in because I was in the lead. And you're going to see the other half of that story in a moment. And there's me taking a picture of Tracy trying to catch me up. And I was like, come on, let's go. And I'll say more about the start of the journey next time. This is, wasn't expected. I thought it was another one. Yeah, this is me. This is me. I just worked out what's going on. That's fine. It's just missed some pictures there, but that's fine. That's me. That is mile 8. Mile 8. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. This is me 2 minutes into the walk. And one of the things that had happened as we planned to do this walk, I'd just been appointed as a regional minister in the Eastern Baptist Association. They didn't have a house for us to live in, so we had to go. Strangely, I'm now up to, I lost count, I'm nearly 30 years in ministry. First and only time we ever got to go and look for a house. It was a very novel experience. And so for the 4 months leading up to our walk, on the days we should have been practicing and warming up and doing all that preparation, we were house hunting. And so when we started, and even Tracy was out of puff, and she's very fit, was out of puff with a mile or two. And at this point, 8 miles to go, and I limped through the rest of that day. And I have to be honest, and I'll say more about this another week, if I hadn't have been walking with Tracy, that would have been the end. That would have been, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. And sometimes when we have a dream, when we're passionate about something, that's the end. So, moving on. This is a map of the second day. We got up and we walked on the second day. That's not going to work. Oh, it is still coming up. I'm so confused about this. So there's Tracy on top of Conic Hill. So if you look at the pink bit of line on that first bit of day, you walk over Conic Hill. It's absolutely beautiful. And then you come down Conic Hill, and at the bottom we put our hammocks up, and we had a lovely time. We even stopped for some ice cream. It was beautiful. And then we had our ice cream, and then we realised it was like 2:30 or something in the afternoon. And if you look at that pink line and the red line, it's all one route. And you've only walked the pink line, and it's 2:30 in the afternoon, and you've got to get to the end within the day. You suddenly realise you've got a problem. And so we walked all the way along, and it was getting later and later at night. And we got to, and I said to Tracy, it's only 2 miles to go. And then we got to this hill. We had to go up the hill. What we now know is you can go round the hill. Because we've walked it again, but there we go. So we walked that, and then we got up on the third day, and on that second day we got into the place where we were staying, and they closed the reception, so you had to walk into the bar. So we walked into the bar with all our kit on, and all the other walkers were staying there, and like clapping us in, sniggering. There was this German family there, they were definitely sniggering at us, you know what they're like, but that came out wrong. And they were like ultra competitive, this family. They were amazing. We saw them virtually every day going past us. And so there we go. And on this second day, we walked up the rest of Loch Lomond, and there's a view. And just to give you an idea, we had our own private beach for lunch. This was our beach we sat on, and we enjoyed the view. If you go at the west side of Loch Lomond, the Bonnie Banks, that's where the road goes, and you go to the beach, and it's just like packed full of people. You go at the east side, where there's no roads, of the West Highland Way, and it's just completely quiet. It's beautiful. And so we went there. There's me again. It was rough along the way, but we kept going. And on this particular day, again, I reached a point where it was like, And it was a good job we were on this east side because there was no way out. You know, one of us had broken a leg at this point. It would have been a helicopter. There's nothing. And we got there, and we were about 2 miles from where we were getting to, and it was getting dark. And it was one of these B&Bs where there was a cut-off point, and then they let your room out to someone else. And so Tracy, the beautiful, wonderful Tracy, ran ahead. And that's the picture when I arrived. I won't tell you what time it was. I got there earlier. I got there in the end. So we had a dream. And what I'll just try to say to you quickly, and there's some other maps and pictures, we'll just gloss over there. We had another. This was the last really difficult day we had. Tracy waited for me so much that in the end she started to feel a lot of pain on her shoulders because she was standing around waiting for the tortoise to catch up. And the day, this was on a Sunday, and as we walked through and everything was closed, we came across this place, Strathfillan Wigwams, and we bought some bacon butties. Never had bacon butties tasted so good. It's funny along the way when you're struggling, the little things that will pick you up. And so we followed these maps and we went the rest of the way. And pretty much when we got to this point, we were getting into, Tracy was in her stride from the beginning. I was getting into my stride and walking on and pressing through and trying to get to where we were going to get to. We went through all these walks. This was the last walk from Kinlochleven to Fort William, 16 miles, starting with a really steep climb. Beautiful walk through a mountain pass there. I know it doesn't look particularly beautiful, but it's just lovely. And here we are at the end. A number of years later, the dream was complete. We'd done it. We'd pressed through. And it leaves me wondering, what sort of dreams have we given up on? What are we in danger of giving up on? Just sort of think about that for a minute. We were going to have a discussion, but we've just realised what time it is, so we won't do that. Just think about that for a moment. What dreams have you given up on? Sometimes God calls us to things. Things get taken away from us. It's painful. Sometimes we lose sight. Sometimes life gets in the way. All sorts of things happen. I think for us as the people of God, God's people in the world, I think there are a number of things that we lose sight of regularly. First is that God is all-powerful. We know it's true, but I would question how much we genuinely believe it when it comes to prayer. The kingdom of God is expanding. That was Jesus' promise. And I believe him. Miracles happen today. Sometimes we pray for miracles. God doesn't perform the miracles. Sometimes he does. But we need to have faith. We want people to know Jesus. And for our personal dreams, the things that God has called us to, we need to come to terms with who God made us to be, so we can live as who God calls us to be. No, resist telling that story. Get on with it. Dreams can be contagious. So we got back from our walk, and our children, so there's our 2 adopted daughters, had the option, and the other children had the option to come with us. And they were like, we're not doing that. We're not walking 96 miles. And when we got back, Amy said to us, I wish I'd come on that walk with you. And so the following year, Summer and myself and Amy and Tracy, we walked the West Highland Way, and that was us on the top of Conic Hill together. Dreams can be contagious. I'm going to read these verses from Genesis and say something very quick about them, because they're very straightforward. Genesis 11, verse 31. One day, Terah took his son Abraham, his daughter Sarai, and that was his son Abraham's wife, and his grandson Lot, his son, the son of Haran's child. Haran was his other son who had died. And he moved away from the Ur of the Chaldeans. He was headed for the land of Canaan. But they stopped at Haran and settled there. Terah lived for 205 years, and died while still in Haran. And you can see that in the map in the bottom corner there. On this side of the screen you see Ur, and they went up to the top to Haran. And they set out to go to Canaan, which was all the way round. And the reason they went round was there was a whacking great big desert in the middle, and this was the trade route they were going round. Terah set out to go to Canaan, but when he got to Haran, he settled there. But chapter 12, the Lord said to Abram, who later became Abraham, "Leave your native country, your relatives and your father's family, and go into the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. All the families on earth will be blessed through you." So Abraham departed as the Lord had instructed him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all his wealth, his livestock, all the people he'd taken into his household at Haran, and headed for the land of Canaan. When they arrived in Canaan, Abram travelled through the land as far as Shechem. There he set up camp beside the oak of Moreh. At that time the area was inhabited by the Canaanites. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "I will give this land to you and your descendants." And Abram built an altar there and dedicated it to the Lord who had appeared for him. After that Abram travelled south and set up camp in the hill country, with Bethel to the west and Ai to the east. There he built another altar and dedicated it to the Lord, and he worshipped the Lord. Then Abram continued travelling south by stages towards the Negev. So, Terah set out for Canaan, but settled in Haran. And again, if we had more time, we'd stop and we'd think about what sort of things cause us to settle instead of pressing on. And when we have dreams, there's all sorts of things that get in the way of what we think is important. And we see that in the life of Terah. He set out, never made it. Abram heard God, and he travelled to Canaan, and he arrived. Abraham lived the dream, the vision that God had given him. And God says, "Leave and go to the land I will show you. You'll be a great nation, more numerous than the stars. You'll be blessed by God. You'll be a blessing to others and ultimately to the whole earth. And the way that people treat you will affect how God would treat them." And then Abram had a choice. He had to obey. And it strikes me as being odd that throughout the Old Testament, this bit isn't odd, you hear God saying, "I am the God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob." And one of the things I find odd about that is it could have been, "I am the God of Terah, Abraham and Isaac." Could have been, but it wasn't, because Terah settled. He settled short of where he was headed towards. Some people would say the difference was one of them had a good idea and one of them had a God idea. Was it that Terah thought it was like the Wild West over in Canaan? I'm going to go and settle over there. There's all the land, there's all the stuff. It's a good idea. But then life got in the way. Abraham was inspired by God, and he went. And very simply, you have to wake up now, I'm afraid. Very simply, I just want to leave us with this simple question and thought. Are we living the dream? That dream that God has given you. Are you living that thing? God has called me to this thing. And as I say, for some of us, life has derailed us. For some of us, we've lost along the way. For some of us, things have got in the way. For some of us, all sorts of things are just in the way. And this is a moment, this time, today, this period that we're walking into, God is calling us as a church to say, will you grasp afresh what I'm calling you to as my people in this area of Trowbridge? And he's saying to some of us as individuals, will you grasp afresh who I made you to be? And there are some of us who we know that God has called us to do all sorts of things, but then when we look in the mirror, we can't reconcile those two things. God has great things for us, but I look at me and I'm just me. And what we need to remember is God who is at work in us and through us. And so as we spend some time worshiping now, let's reflect on these things and listen to God. If you want to stand up and worship, please do. If you want to use the time to sit and pray and listen to God, please do. Let's just use these last moments of our service just to connect with him afresh. Ask him to show us what his dream, what his vision for us is, and that he might give us the faith to step into it.